Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session, Disabilities Do Not Define Me, Stories of Effective Self-Advocacy. I'm Deja Braxton. I am a disability rights advocate at Disability Law Center of Virginia. I've been with them about 2 months, a little over now. So it's exciting for me to be here with you all today. So our session today, we're going to have several panelists who are going to do presentations, and then at the end of their presentations, we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So just to give you all a brief description of what the session is going to be about today, the session will highlight the advocacy experiences and journeys of individuals who love and care for people with disabilities, are a person living with a disability, or who professionally serve people with disabilities. So it's kind of touched all of our panelists in a personal way through their work, through their family, or through their own personal life. So participants will be able to learn about self-advocacy tips, tricks, and best practices, while also being able to interact with the panelists for Q&A. So just a quick housekeeping note, even though this is a question and answer panel, we're going to give our presenters time to get through their presentations before we take questions. So I'm going to do the question and answers at the end of the session. So I will keep a note of all your questions that you have, and afterward we'll get a chance to get the presenters to answer all those questions for you. So I'll do a quick intro of all of our presenters here today, and once they do their presentations, they can go over a little bit more detail about themselves and why they're here today and what they're going to talk about regarding the topic. So also, if you want to read their full bios, you can do so on the speaker tab on the 𝐶𝐚 platform. I know it's a little bit tricky, but once you figure it out, everything's laid out there for you so you can access it and see their full bios. So first we have Leslie Mehta. Leslie is currently the Chief of Staff and Counsel to the CEO at the Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority. She also received her bachelor's in English Literature from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and a Juris Doctorate from Howard University School of Law. Leslie Mehta has been a lawyer for nearly 2 decades. So that's just a small blurb about her. She has a lot of experience. 𝐶𝐚𝐰 𝐂𝐞𝐧𝐢𝐬𝐀, I already practiced and now I got it wrong. Chelsea is a psychologist who specializes in the science and art of psychological well-being and contemplative practice. Tricky. She has a PhD in developmental psychology and has led research with the National Institute of Health on the benefits and risks of meditation as a mental health intervention. She is currently completing graduate training to become a licensed professional counselor. Then we have Christina Brookman. She was working as a theater teacher before she was diagnosed with several conditions herself. So I will do everyone a favor and not butcher the names of the conditions, but Chelsea can elaborate a little bit more on those when she gives her presentation. And she also had some experience with being a DLCV client, and when she went through that experience, she returned to volunteer with us at the agency. And then we have Melinda Brookman. So Melinda earned a Master of Science in Special Education at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. She also taught, tutored, and advocated for students in special and general education from the ages of birth through 12th grade in Illinois, Oregon, and Virginia. Though she retired from teaching, she continues to advocate for all individuals with special needs. So that's just a little bit about our presenters. And Leslie will be giving the first presentation today. So welcome, Leslie, and can't wait to hear.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen first. Thanks, Deja. So again, my name is Leslie Mehta, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about my experience with the disability community and how we got there. So first of all, so my presentation title says Journey to Pretty Brook, and I'll explain what that is later. This is my family. This is, there's me and my husband, and then Brooke is the older child on the bottom left of my screen, and I have a 1-year-old Blair as well. Pretty Brooke comes from the fact that the word Rett is in the middle of Pretty Brooke, and Brooke has Rett syndrome. So just a little bit about my background first. That will probably give you a better idea of my advocacy. As Deja mentioned, I am a lawyer. I graduated from Howard University. I've worked at civil rights firms and nonprofits for advocating on behalf of California consumers. I was the legal director of the ACLU of Virginia for a number of years. And so because of all that, advocacy and social justice and all of those kinds of things run through my veins and prior to all of the things that happened with Brooke. So a little bit about Brooke's journey. Brooke was born in 2015. It was pretty uneventful. She didn't have any symptoms or signs that there would be anything that would be different about her. However, within a few months, we started to notice that she was not hitting the milestones that she should be hitting. She wasn't developing, she wasn't rolling over, she wasn't doing some of the things that typically babies would do at that age. And so we started to have our discussions with the pediatrician immediately. And I will say, you know, when we're talking about tips, one of the things that if you come from it from a perspective like me as a parent, and you're seeing something that's maybe a little bit different, you may want to just go ahead and start having those discussions with your pediatrician. As we did, we started having those discussions pretty early on, and the pediatrician recommended that we go get her tested. And in fact, we found out that we weren't just parents who were first-time parents who were nervous. There were some developmental delays going on with her, although we didn't know we didn't have a name for it at that point. But we started our path to be able to work with speech therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists who've all been great. We started that work through the county when she was probably about 6 months old. So she's been doing that since then. And in 2017, Brooke got the diagnosis that we were waiting for. It was Rett syndrome. And honestly, we had to look it up. We had no idea what that was. But because of the background that I shared with you earlier, our first idea was to start researching. I believe personally that you can't really be a good advocate for yourself or for someone that you love unless you've done your own research and your own homework on the issue. And so what I started doing was educating myself about Rett syndrome, about disability issues. I started researching things like the prognosis, what potential skill sets she may be able to have, what limitations she may have. Of course, I would suggest and recommend that don't let that limit you. There are lots of people who are able to do things that, you know, the doctors may say you can't do, but I wanted to have a general idea of what that might mean for her. I started looking into specialty clinics. There are clinics for Rett syndrome all across the country, and I started researching those. I started researching Rett syndrome organizations, talking to some of the heads of those organizations, just picking up the phone or emailing. A lot of them have email addresses on their websites, and finding out information about their organizations. And for Rett syndrome in particular, there are really great organizations out there that have information on resources and help and the genetic research that is out there and all of those kinds of things that are on the forefront. And of course, I started looking into funding sources. I knew that this would be a journey, a journey for her. And so I wanted to make sure that I looked into those kinds of things as well, and including things like the Medicaid and legal educational rights and those kinds of things. And I also, because Rett syndrome is a rare disorder, it affects 1 in 10,000 girls and even fewer boys, girls and women, I should say. I had to also educate medical professionals because some people didn't really know a lot about Rett syndrome, the people I was talking to. So I was educating for myself, but also for the community as well. And you'll see here that I started reaching out to my the political leaders, the representatives in my community, teachers, daycare providers, and I also got a special needs advocate to help with kindergarten as well. And so I gathered all of that information together, and I started, after being able to do it for myself and to help Brooke be able to kind of navigate her world, I also thought it would be a good idea to share that information. And so I started doing product reviews and interviews on YouTube under the name Pretty Brooke. Pretty Brooke Presents. And I interview different people as I have on my presentation. I've interviewed the CEOs. I've interviewed Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, First Lady of Virginia, Pamela Northam, and all at prettybrooke.com. So I do a lot of advocacy, and I'm happy to talk more about what that means and the kinds of things that I've done and other tips at the end. I welcome questions at the end. Thank you, Deja. Deja, actually, I think you're on mute.
Thank you so much. I was absolutely on mute. So next we'll have Chelsea presenting. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Deja, and thank you, Leslie. That was a really helpful presentation for me to see all your resources and your wealth of experience. So I really appreciate that. So my name is Chelsea. I'm a developmental psychologist, as Deja mentioned, and I think my bio is available, so I won't go too much into what I do, other than that some of what I'll talk about is related to my work in mindfulness and really inner work, the inner work of disability advocacy. That's really where I am coming from in my journey with my disability. And I don't have a presentation, so I'm just going to kind of wing it, but I have multiple sclerosis and a degenerative spine disease, and was diagnosed in 2012. So I've spent a good portion of my adult life not with disability, and now a good portion of my life with disability. And so one of the hallmarks of my condition is it fluctuates and it progresses, and it's largely invisible, these all being complicating factors that make social conditions and self-advocacy challenging when people don't automatically see you and understand what you're going through. So, you know, I kind of navigate through and have navigated through many different sectors, from education to healthcare and services, pre-disability and post-disability. And it's really been a shock to my identity in many ways, and ultimately where I'm at now feels very positive in what I've learned from amazing disability advocates along the way. So I'll just say a bit of, from a personal story standpoint, of why this is important, this advocacy piece important to me, because it's been far too frequent that I have received negative interactions and those experiences in a variety of conditions, including education, employment, healthcare, even in the social services that are supposed to help me in my disability. I have nothing but amazing things to say for the Disability Law Center. And unfortunately, they're very rare in my experience. I've been medical settings, I've been injected with medication without my consent. My emotions are constantly overlooked. I've had to navigate choosing to have children with a disability, which comes with a lot of prejudice in the medical system, to be honest. And in the field of my career, I've been called overeducated to be presenting with my disability and what I'm asking for in terms of work placement and accommodations. I've been told that I don't have the ability to know what goals to set for myself. I've been told that, I've been let go from positions, to be honest, that weren't willing to be with me through medical accommodations that I didn't know how to advocate for at the time. And so I'm just laying that groundwork out there to share that this has been a really long process for me of growing into my disability. And when it really comes down to it, I am my best advocate. I have to know my own worth. And unfortunately, that's been a challenge in the beginning, where I wanted nothing to do with my disability, my vision impairments, my cognitive functioning, my mobility, and all of these things that compound each other. I really stigmatized myself in the beginning of not wanting to be normal, as if normal ever existed. So it's taken me a long time to not only sit with that in my meditation practice and my well-being practices that had been very normative, and I had to realize I was in a bubble, but really expanding of how worthy I am in this society that doesn't always view me as worthy, how deserving I am, and how just inherently of worth I am to contribute. And so when I'm able to remember that, I am able to advocate for myself first, for my friends and family, for my doctors, for my employers. It just all trickles out from there. So my tips, I guess, I don't know if I have any quick and easy tips, but I do practice being in the present moment with how I'm feeling in a variety of social contexts. I don't let other people take my inner experience away. And that's hard to do, which is why I teach meditation, I practice meditation, and that's a doorway for me. I also surround myself by people who get it, people who care about me and who are willing to learn what my experience is like. And they don't always understand, but they're willing to learn and understand. And I have found amazing resources, leading edge advocates in our field. I would highly recommend Disability Visibility as a resource and newsletter, which is led by Alice Wong. I would highly recommend anything written by 𝐿𝐢𝐿𝐼 Samaransinha, who's also an advocate, and she's created a whole community and organization online for people with disability to come together. So for me, it's, the beginning inward and then really finding that community support. I don't think you can do advocacy one without the other. So those are, my main thoughts and points that I wanted to share. So I think I'll pause there and hand it over to Christina, but I'm happy to answer questions at the end and be connected with anyone in the community that wants to connect. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you for sharing with us that very personal story about your experiences. And Christina, if you're ready, you can go ahead and start your presentation too.
Okay. I'm gonna share my screen, see if I'm doing this right. Hold on a second. My name is Christina Brookman, and I have Ehlers-Danlos, and POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and trigeminal neuralgia, among some other things. I got my BFA in theater, and I was a teacher, an actress, and a director for Theater for Youth. The road to get diagnosed was difficult for me. I was kind of hearing it with Leslie and Chelsea too, since I have complicated disorders. I had problems as a kid with overheating and passing out, but it wasn't till later when I started having joint problems that a friend thought that I might have Ehlers-Danlos. And I didn't know what to do, so I called the national organization to see if they thought that I might have the disorder and if I should see a doctor about it. And they referred me to see a geneticist. I was really fortunate at the time living in Ohio that we had some excellent specialists in my disorders nearby. So I sought them out. At the time I was teaching, I was having difficulty teaching because my classroom didn't have circulating air. And for me, that can become very dangerous. As you can see, I have fans going now that I love. But I spoke with my supervisor and got permission to have my classroom in other rooms in the building when it was necessary. I'd also put on my ice vest and kind of work it out with my students. And we also came to the agreement that I would not work lunches, but I would have naps instead, which really helped me. Unfortunately, I was still unable to work, but I advocated for those things while I was working. When I came to Virginia, I was told that all of the doctors are in DC, but I went onto forums and I kind of researched where other people were seeing doctors and went to the national organizations again for Ehlers-Danlos, dysautonomia, and facial pain, and got information about specific doctors to see. Most of the doctors that I wanted to get in to see didn't have appointments for 6 months to a year, so I would just call multiple times when I could during the week to see if I could get on a wait list or if somebody had canceled. When I was going to the doctor, I found that it was really helpful to have a goal each time that I went to the doctor, a specific goal. I ran into a lot of what you ran into as well, Chelsea, with misinformation and but I found that if I go with a goal and my list of symptoms, I get the best possible outcome that I can. It's not always successful, but it's what I'm trying. And I recommend bringing an advocate family member or friend who also has their observations with you. And if they can't be there, to write down what they're seeing, because that was really instrumental in getting me diagnosed. I lost my health insurance in my divorce, and until, well, that was a big obstacle for me. My mom found a nurse navigator at Bon Secours who kind of became our advocate, and I would work with her to get funding through Bon Secours, and she helped me work with a social worker at VCU to get the VCC health insurance, which is what they had before Medicaid expansion. My biggest advice is just to call and keep calling and keep calling, because eventually you're going to meet somebody that's going to be able to open a door for you. I worked with the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services to work and had my case closed due to disability. When I was being back in Virginia meant that I had to restart my disability application, and my DARS counselor recommended I go to Elizabeth Horn, who was with Disability for Law Services, Disability Law Center of Virginia. And this led me to my approval of my disability application and just changed everything for me. Housing, some of you probably already know this, but affordable housing is very difficult for people with low income and disabilities in Virginia. I was able to negotiate with my apartment building for an affordable housing rate. And I also worked with the Department of Housing and Urban Development on the recommendation of DLCV in order to get a push button installed on my building for accessibility. My aunt has MS and needed affordable housing recently. So when I was able to, I made calls and researched and toured and helped her fill out her applications. And in the end, she's been able to move into a place that she really loves. I go onto forums and try to reach out and share my experiences and share doctor information. I recommend forums. I just say be cautious as well, because when so many people are coming together with so much with these shared experiences, it can become a negative environment too. So you just have to be careful of your own mental health when you're talking with people. I've started to volunteer with the DLCV, answering phones. I did at one point, and jail correspondence and data work. On my PowerPoint, I've got some helpful links to the associations that helped me that you can get at the end of this. For Facial Pain Association, Ehlers-Danlos Society, Dysautonomia International, HUD, Resources for Independent Living, which helped me a lot, and DARS. I also recommend the spoon theory. If you haven't heard of it before, it is a great thing that helps people with chronic illnesses explain to other people what they're going through, because the biggest thing I hear from people is that people just don't get it. And so it's an easy way to help you explain what daily life is like. And that's it. And I am happy to answer questions at the end.
Thank you so much. And thanks for providing your contact information for anybody who has questions. Do you want to repeat it again, just so if anyone has questions after this, they can email you?
Sure, it's CB Christina, CHRISTINA, Brookman, BROOKMAN, @gmail.com. And that's also going to be on the PowerPoint presentation that you can access.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get into our last presentation with Melinda. So we're going to try to speed through this. No, I'm just kidding. We don't need to speed through it, but I definitely want to take your questions at the end. So we'll go ahead and hear Melinda speak now.
I had a presentation all written out, and I think I'm going to wing it just instead, because I've heard so much good information so far that there are some other things I'd like to share that are different. it's never time I turned around, they were diagnosing me with something new. I'm diagnosed with over 35 conditions. One of which I have volunteered, taught, tutored, advocated, and been a meeting facilitator for both NAMI and DBSA. So right now, after spending my life advocating for my children and advocating for myself, and I started advocating for myself when I was in middle school, and continued because I had already been doing volunteer work with children that had disabilities. I had learned things and started looking things up, and was able to realize how important it is to be informed, to know what your rights are, to know how things really should be, and to be able to express to other individuals when you go into a business or a doctor's office or a school or something and say, you're supposed to have 36 inches between aisles so that a wheelchair can fit through, or to know the different things like that, because I'm in a wheelchair right now. So there are things that I've learned such as that. And it's been very important to advocate for my children because both my children were diagnosed with disabilities. And one of them, I literally did not have a single quarter that during any year that I didn't have to call a meeting to say, you're violating his IEP. We need to go back over it. And they knew I was a special ed teacher, but they still would violate his IEP. And it was ridiculous. And my other child did fantastic. We got him in early. We realized he has the same disability I do that the first person in the world to be diagnosed with, and he's the second. So, but I got him in early and got a lot of PT, OT, speech. I knew to do all these things because I was trained in special ed, and I was going through I had gotten a master's in special education. So the most important thing I did was going into these different places and talking to people and saying, hey, what experiences have you had? Or, have you found any good places for this or for that, or to talk to different people, to be able to go in and talk to other people and to know about places like, any individual with a disability tends to really have times in their life when they get depressed or they get sad or they need help, which is why I recommend NAMI and DBSA, because they work with all ages and have training programs. And I just want to make sure that that the school systems out there, like I've been in as a teacher and staff, I've seen things that I shouldn't see. I fought for them. There are other teachers fighting for them. There are other people in the schools fighting, parents fighting. And if we keep working together, then every time I fight for something, I help somebody else. Every time they fight for something, they help me or they help someone else. So advocacy is just such an important thing to me. And I am here to help anyone that needs help at this point in time. If I can't help you, I will help you find somewhere like the Disability Law Center or, a tutoring company or whatever you need, or, a doctor, or find a dentist that'll see you and won't charge you or will charge you based on your income, things like that. I know how to find those kind of things in Richmond and Midlothian because of my experience. So, to wrap it up, I just want to say that knowing that, yes, there are problems, yes, there are difficulties, yes, I've had to fight to get things like placards put up on medical buildings so that there was a space in every room, in every waiting room for a wheelchair to park so that I could sit with everybody else and not be stuck in the middle of an aisle, blocking the aisle. And, but if you're consistent and you you know, keep yourself knowledgeable and you're, you know, calm with them and work with them, you can get places. And to go to, you know, there's always all these places out there, like everybody has mentioned, and there's a lot more if you look them up and you look up a lot of the disabilities or whatever is going on in your area. There are special doctors and stuff in the areas. It's just very hard to find them sometimes. And being consistent, like she said earlier, with making a phone call every day. Like with one of the hospitals that I go to, they'll tell me I can't see for 3 months. Or, you know, I have an infection and they'll say, we can't see you for 2 weeks. And I'll say, wait a minute, I have the infection now. You know, but so the thing is being consistent and calling every day and saying, hey, do you have an opening? Hey, this is really bad. This is getting worse. You know, giving them the details, it makes a difference. So know yourself, know your family members, fight for yourself, fight for your family members, you know, and be there. Know that you can reach out to people. If anyone wants to reach out to me, they can reach out to me at my email, which is melindamassa@hotmail.com. It's MELINDAMASSA@hotmail.com. And I will help you, or I will help direct you, or help you try to find whatever you can, just like all of these other people have. And I've really enjoyed today because I've learned a lot, and I want to thank you all for everything.
Thank you all. It was great hearing each of you being able to share those key moments in your life and finding out how to best advocate for yourself and those experiences, or advocating for others and those struggles along the way. So I really appreciate you being here today and being able to share a piece of that with us. I know it's just like a small portion of what your journey has been like. We don't have any chat box questions, but one question is just for myself that I have is, I guess, how do you all, or what have you noticed have been some assumptions that people make about people with disabilities, especially invisible ones?
Oh, I know with in a wheelchair that people will walk away from me and give me more room as if I'm contagious or something. Or, you know, it's just an assumption. Or if I accidentally cough, it's like, oh my gosh, they're off and nowhere near me. And I know that's partially because of what's going on, but you know, it's just because they see someone that is without a leg or without, you know, or in crutches or whatever, they seem to think they can't do anything. Well, guess what? I coached a baseball team. There are teams out there for sports and things like that, and they can, if you have a goal and you want to do it, strive for it.
Well, I will say with my daughter, I don't know if I had said this or not earlier, with Rett syndrome, she she's not mobile, and she's nonverbal. And so one of the challenges is that she has a device that it's called a 𝐲𝐫 eye gaze, so it helps her to communicate, and we're still working on it. She's only 5 years old, but one of the things that often people think about is that, oh, well, she doesn't have a way to communicate, or you don't have, you know, you can't really talk to her, or that kind of thing. She does. She has a way to communicate. She can let you know what she thinks, whether it's with her 𝐲𝐫 eye gaze communication device, or she uses her eyes. She's able to kind of, within the low-tech version, we have like yes and no cards for her. So sometimes people, I mean, if you don't know, I guess you don't know, but some people underestimate sometimes what she can do and what she can learn. I'm finding that, you know, again, that education piece of with the teachers in school, to teach them, teach other people about what she's capable of doing.
So we do have a comment from someone in the chat just saying thank you all for your advocacy experiences and sharing them with us today. I'm sure everyone found this very helpful. Does anyone have like a piece of parting advice or their favorite piece of advice they've gotten that they want to share with everyone? We got about 3 minutes left.
Well, I guess I'll jump in if no one else is for a second. Just make sure that wherever you are, you reach out as far as you can to every teacher every year. You inform them every year beforehand what's going on. When you walk into a job, make sure they know certain things, because it's important for them to know some of your medical conditions in case something happens. But do what you can to, inform other people and to keep everybody else informed so that you can help get the information for yourself and out to others, because that's the only way that we're going to get the help and the acceptance that we need, is by continuing to be verbal and continuing to do things on the internet like we are right now.
I would add to that research for yourself and for others. That's really key, because the more you know for yourself, the more, like Melinda, you said earlier, you're able to advocate. You're able to tell people you're supposed to have this amount of space so the wheelchair can go through. All of those kinds of things. The more information you have, the more you're able to share and be your own advocate.
Yeah, to add to that, I even pull up, like this week 3 times, I've pulled up on my phone and shown them under ADA what the regulation is. And I mean, one of the stores I went into, I won't say what it was, but literally just said, okay, I'm calling corporate right now and telling them that we're against fire code and we're against ADA, and I'm going to tell them that we need to get some of these aisles out of here. And it's like, it felt so good to hear that.
Okay, if nobody on the panel had any other comments, we're just about at 4:30, so I did want to give everyone listening today some closing information about DLCV. So we have advocates who are on duty on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8:30 to 4 p.m. To access them, you can call 1-800-552-3962. Or you can call our number 804-225-2042. And the first number is a TTY. So to request any assistance, or you can complete the online request form as well. If you don't speak English, we have access to a language line that helps us communicate with you in your own language. So either give us a call, our number is on the website, or you can access us through the online request form. So we have a variety of ways you can get the information you need and speak with an advocate who may be able to help you with any resources that you may need. So thank you all very much. Also, okay, I need to give you guys the website, which is https://www.dlcv.org/gethelp. So dlcv.org/gethelp. And that is so you can request services online. But also, thank you all for joining us today. You guys have been very enlightening, just explaining your different experiences that you've had. And I really appreciate you being open and willing to answer questions and willing to share with us. So I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.